What's up, guys? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. We are making some pretty good progress on this latest set of aquariums. Real quick overview. It is about 2,500 gallons. There are five 500-gallon tanks, a 500-gallon sump. So once you kind of like account for all the volume loss, for the glass thickness, for the amount of air and everything like that, give or take 2,500 gallons. This system is probably going to be our most important system because it is attached to our new packing area. And I'm actually most excited about that. I might be the only person excited about such things, but here we are. I'm not gonna get too in-depth into this packing station because it is just a packing station, but it is easily my favorite part of this update. So first off, my favorite thing about this entire packing station is its incredible size. Over in the greenhouse where we do most of our packing, it's basically two little 4-foot desks, and that's really all the space that we could even allocate towards it. Long story short, as our sales volume increased, that kind of became like super congested. So coming into this building, I wanted to make sure that for whatever volume we do in the future, we would have the capacity to do it really efficiently. So that's actually why we have these systems here set up. They're not really so much for farming, but it's more for like the online sales aspect of it, and to have it really close to the shipping that we're doing here. The material choices are pretty insane. It's all on aluminum T-slot. This is quartz, so it's pretty opulent as far as like materials go. We have our bag staplers. Access to a sink is really nice, and just like the sheer length of it all, because it's a good almost 40 feet, and that's plenty of room for everybody to spread out and get all their packing stuff organized. Shelving. We went through 4 different carpenters to try to get this built, and all 4 of them, for whatever reason, bailed. And one of our part-time guys, he's pretty handy, and we just were like, you know what? Why don't we just try to build it ourselves? Let's just go for it. And it took a little longer than we would have liked, but we did get it up there. It looks nice. We have some nice LEDs underneath for that kind of that under cabinet look. It's fully controllable. We have an app that controls almost all of the non-aquarium lighting in this place, so we can have it come on gently in the morning when everybody's like walking in and everything like that, and ramp up towards packing time, that sort of thing. It's pretty neat. The one thing that we went with was kind of like this floating design at first. If you wanted to put any kind of substantial weight on that floating design, it's not really great for that. So we put core bills, and they were okay. It was all right, but we were putting in quite a lot more weight than what the core bills were able to manage. We eventually put up steel cabling, and now this thing, you can like do pull-ups on it, you can jump up and down on it. It is not gonna care. Because believe it or not, like these boxes here, it's full of these aluminum staples. A box of those aluminum staples is like 20-something pounds. It's actually a pretty good weight. And we've got like a half dozen of these boxes like stuck up there. Between that, the plastic bags, it is like a significant amount of weight, but we're able to tweak these as far as like their tension, because we installed like a turnbuckle system. So even if it does like sag a little bit in the future, we can like crank it up and it'll get back level. So anyways, no more about this packing station, I promise. Next up, we have lighting. For this system, we decided to go with 50 Ecotech XR30 Pros. These are the Gen 5 models, guys, and you can kind of see the general layout. They're about roughly 6 to 8 inches apart, and there's going to be 10 of them for this particular tank. This is a 10-foot tank. It's 10 feet by 4 feet, but the internal dimensions are a little bit smaller. It's probably overkill, but we wanted to go with like maximum coverage. And you might be wondering, well, why did you go with Gen 6s? So the difference between the Gen 5 and the Gen 6 Radions mainly comes down to the controllability in the blue channels, as well as the overall spread. Now, for a home aquarist that's looking to do an aquarium that has like a really good amount of spread, a Gen 6 is probably going to be better for you. But for us, a Gen 5 or even a Gen 4 would have been pretty good because it has less spread, but that works out better for us because of how we're going to be hanging these things up. The lighting over our coral farm is significantly higher than what a normal home hobbyist is going to be looking at. So usually people have their lights about 8 inches above a tank, but we're going to be looking at about something closer to like 48 inches above the tank. And for that reason, we do want it to be a little bit more concentrated. Granted, a Gen 5 is plenty wide, but it's better than a Gen 6 for us. Oh, before I forget, sound panels. We got a dozen more of these installed in the ceiling, and sure enough, physics still works. They help knock down a lot of the echo that's going on in this main space. Okay, in really big news, we have about, I'd say 80% of the plumbing done. Now, I am so glad that I called in the pros and waited it out for their availability, because these stands are significantly shorter than what we've got going on in the previous systems. And we wanted that for easier accessibility, especially top-down photography for Becca, things like that. Because the stands are so much shorter, there's less room for all this closed-loop plumbing and the drainage systems and everything like that. There's certain parts of it that are very tight clearances. We're talking maybe like ½ inch here and there. It is a tight squeeze, but they did such a good job so far. It is just like super clean. Everything is just perfect. However, again, talking about availability, I was really hoping, fingers crossed, that they'd be done by now. They've got maybe like 2 or 3 days left of plumbing, and then we should be able to turn on the pumps and get this guy up and running. The closed loops themselves are going to be run off of Abiz A200s. Now, I was really on the fence as to whether to use this pump or the one size larger, the 400, because the 200, I like the flow that it kicks out, but usually on a tank this size, I'd be using 2 of these, but because of our layout of plumbing underneath, I didn't really have the space to put more than just the one here. I wasn't too concerned because this is still plenty of flow, and A200 is a ton. But we're also going to be adding in some power heads from Seche, some Voyager 10s if you're familiar with that pump. It's a pretty strong little pump. Going back to the Abiz discussion, going with an A400 versus a 200. The 400 kicks out a lot of flow. I mean, we're using a 400 as a return pump for like 5 of these aquariums, for example. Over in the farming systems, it's powering 6 aquariums, plus a manifold. So they're really capable. Now, the reason why I was kind of worried about using an A400 in a closed loop is the suction side might be so strong that I think that fish and other inverts will be in genuine risk of just getting sucked in and blended. So that would kind of ruin a day or two if like our favorite yellow tang made it through one of these pumps. So anyway, for now at least, we're rocking the A200s, and we will see how that goes. I mean, really, the first world problem. These pumps are awesome. A little bit of detail I can share is the plumbing along the ground. The bigger pipe is a 4-inch main drain that goes to the sump. The smaller pipe is a 2-inch return, and eventually that gets reduced down to 1.5 inches. That 4-inch drain, theoretically, is several times bigger than what we would ever need, but we have the room for it, and extra capacity on the drainage side is never an unwelcome thing. You also might be wondering, well, these pipes are kind of going right across the floor. This could be a safety hazard. And you're absolutely right. It is not customer or worker friendly right now, and we are waiting to get some platforms built. Theoretically, in the future, none of this will even be visible. There will be what amounts to a 7-inch step up onto a platform. When I said that there was not a ton of room, I was not kidding. A lot of the plumbing fittings are really large, and there's a lot of them congested in this particular area. So real quick, I can point out a couple of the things. This guy here is the return line coming from the sump. It's got a true union. This is a 1.5 inch true union. This, I guess, going from right to left. This is our clean out for the drain. This is actually a 3-inch drain, And then when it connects to the main line is a 4-inch. Then we have our triple drainage from the overflow box. I guess on the far left is the gate valve controlled main drain, and that's going to be the thing that sets the height of the water, and that makes it pretty much dead silent as far as like the drainage goes. We have like the secondary, which is the top point of the drain, and then we have our full siphon. Oh no, everything's gone wrong. This guy will be actually more than enough to handle the full drainage capacity for this tank. But this triple drain overflow assembly is pretty common in the hobby these days. But all of this here, yeah, I can see how it gets a little congested. I wanted to show you this assembly back here. This is kind of like the back corner of this part of the building. The wall that you see over on this side, that's the bathroom wall. And we've made a false wall so that all this plumbing can shoot behind the bathroom. And so there's our 2-inch return line coming from the sump and our 4-inch drain line that goes to the sump. If you're wondering what that T there is for, that is for a clean out. We have clean outs on both sides. Last but not least, we have our sump. Yes, this is a custom job by Aquacrylic, which is a local company here. So Steve built me pretty much all of the sumps in this building. So there's one for set A, one for set B, and this is the third for set C. Funny story though, there was a slight mix-up in the material choice for this. Previously, the other sumps were built with 1/2-inch material, which is great. Hasn't like bowed or buckled or anything like that. And the supports were made with 3/4, but something got lost in the sauce. And so this particular sump, the entire thing is made of 3/4. And I was like, well, it's awesome for me because I'm always here for the overbuilt stuff, right? But I'm just thinking, how much is this going to cost me? Because that's a little unexpected to go from like 1/2-inch material to 3/4, but yeah, no, it's fine. I haven't been billed yet, so I haven't had the sticker shock, but yeah, this is a hugely beefed up version of the previous sumps that I've had. Another difference is we are doing the plumbing slightly differently over there in the other systems. We actually have 3 intake lines. We have 3 drain lines because of the way that the system kind of spiders out. But here, it all gets consolidated into that 4-inch main. And this 4-inch main comes into this 4-inch bulkhead, pretty massive. From that, the water is going to rise up into this single compartment and into a filter sock chamber. These are 4 7-inch filter socks. And before you ask, why aren't you going with filter rollers? Because I've never used them before, and most of them are not commercial sized anyway. Remember, we are using an Abyss A400 return pump. Do the gallons per hour flow rate calculations on that. It is a whole bunch of water coming back to this sump that then has to get filtered. And so assuming that the filter socks then would fill up, I mean, we're probably going to be only using the filter socks only when we're doing like heavy maintenance on the system. So it's not even a thing that we would necessarily run 24/7. But assuming that they all fill up, there's a little lip here that then the water will cascade over into the rest of the sump. The rest of the sump are going to have our heating and cooling, maybe a little bit of rocks, and probably like some room for equipment. It's a pretty big sump, plenty of room for dabbling in the future with. And hopefully the next time that you see me, this will all have lighting and will all have water in it. That would be nice. Funny story about the plumbers. We are on the schedule, but there's a couple jobs ahead of us, and they said that like they need to be dry for those jobs because they're doing some excavating, and they said, you know, if it rains and we get rained out, we'll absolutely come over and do your project. And I'm thinking, dude, this is a layup. It's Ohio. It's spring. Of course it's going to rain these guys out. Dry. I was in Arizona on vacation, and it was basically the same sort of thing in Ohio as it is in Arizona. Sunny, hot, and dry. Great. So anyway, no plumbers yet. Fingers crossed. Hopefully this next week they can spare a few days and just get all this plumbing done. Okay. When it comes to skimmer choices, we use several of these reef octopus. I think they go by Octo now. A lot of these Octo 8000 skimmers. And I like them a lot mainly because they're a great value for the commercial size of it. I like the fact that it's a single pump. A lot of comparable skimmers with this build quality are a lot more expensive. So they kind of have like this commercial budget appeal. The optional neck cleaner is really cool, easy to set up, and that really does keep the skimmer really nice and clean. The only thing that I have that's a criticism of this has like nothing to do with the performance of the skimmer. It works just great. The only thing is I wish it was quieter, and that's only because I'm like a psycho about sound. I know that like Abyss has a needle wheel kit for their pumps. I was just thinking, I wish that there was a way, like an adapter set that could go from the Abyss plumbing to this skimmer plumbing, because I am crazy enough to upgrade the existing Octo pump with the Abyss pump if given the option. So I know that like Reef Octopus, they do have some DC powered pumps that are significantly quieter than this AC pump, but last I checked, they didn't come to this size. That's like the biggest hang up. You don't have that DC option. So maybe either in the future, a DC option pump or an Abyss adapter set. One of the two would be great. But regardless, very happy with these skimmers overall. And it is most likely the one that we're going to be going with for the new system as well. Anyway, that does it from here, guys. Happy reefing.